Welcome to Global Tax Talk. I'm Will Morris, and we're filming here in Mombasa, Kenya at PwC's Africa Tax Policy and Business Symposium, where I'm thrilled to be joined by Taiwo Oyedele, who is chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform in Nigeria, where he has successfully shepherded through some amazing tax legislation. Taiwo, welcome.
Thank you,
And
Will.
congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Good. So, look, let's start with this legislation itself. So the president in June signed 4 different reform bills, which comprehensively overhaul the Nigerian tax system. So what are the long-term vision and objectives of this legislation?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's always good to take a step back and start with the vision.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if you don't have a clear vision, you're likely to just be all over the place and not know when you're making progress. So we have this tax system, which we pretty much inherited from the British, pre-60s. And so fast forward, 60 years after, and some of them are no longer fit for purpose. And some of it is because the economy has just evolved.
Right.
And the tax system hasn't really been able to keep pace with that level of development. And so much so that we find ourselves in a situation where the tax system and more broadly, the fiscal system became an impediment to growth.
Yep.
So the president set up my committee with a very broad mandate beyond tax. It was mostly revenue transformation, including tax. It was also about fiscal reform around spending, as well as borrowing and policy coordination, particularly fiscal, monetary, and trade. So part of the work we did was to say, these tax laws are not working for us. Yep. And we're repealing all of them. And we wrote new tax laws, and then mostly 4 of them. One is Nigerian Tax Act, telling you what taxes you need to pay.
Yep.
One is Nigerian Tax Administration Act, telling you who administer those taxes. And then there's a law to establish the Nigerian Revenue Service to help with harmonization, as well as what we call the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Act. This is now the association of all the revenue authorities in Nigeria, federal and sub-national. So essentially, the focus of the objective wasn't even to generate revenue, at least not in the immediate term.
Right.
For us, it was more about not placing the cart before the horse.
Right.
Because taxes are the consequences of economic activities. So we prioritize growth. We prioritize how do you cater for the people, protect the vulnerable people, make the tax system progressive across all tax types, not just personal income tax, VAT, capital gains, and then ensure that people who have a little bit more, the high net worth income earners, pay a little bit more. And then we are particular about efficiency using technology as well. Overall, we want government to be efficient in collecting taxes. We want the burden of tax to be less on people and businesses so they can grow. And then for government to be able to demonstrate the application of tax revenue in providing social services for the people.
Great. You are the envy of the world, I promise you. So what trends in fiscal policy do you think this signals for the next 3 to 5 years? And do you think we're now getting towards a more stable system?
Absolutely. I think, a few years back, maybe within the past 10 years, I've also been involved, even though to a lesser extent at that time from the private sector, working with the government around national tax policy. And one of the outcomes of those whole policy reform at the time was the introduction of Annual Finance Act. Mm-hmm. And the intention originally was, let's correct some of the things that are not really working for us in the tax laws. And then after the first 2 Finance Acts were introduced, then it became something else, such that it introduced uncertainty into the system. People don't know what to expect. The time period for turnaround was quite short, not enough consultation, a use of data, and then we solved one problem and created a bigger one.
Right.
So what we've now done with this is to say, let's just reform the system. Let's do a good job of co-creation with the people, private sector, civil society, businesses, international community. And once we have something that we feel is fit for purpose, people can then take that to the bank and know that for the next few years, we're not going to be having changes that will create uncertainties. And that should we have to change anything, even in the next few years, we can hold constant our promise to the people that will not increase their tax burden. Right? Things can move in different directions, but ultimately, we want businesses to be competitive. We want risk-adjusted return to be attractive, and so we can just overall have shared prosperity for our people.
Right. And as you say, that's the vision, which is great to start with that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there have been a significant number of changes, nevertheless. So what are the key actions that businesses should be thinking about taking now?
Yeah, that's a very important question, actually. So these would impact on everyone, businesses, individuals, small, large firms, multinationals. I think the first thing is for people to get a proper understanding, to be well informed, and it's quite a lot. So I would say to businesses in particular to reach out to their advisors, because it's not something they can do on their own. We try to put out a lot of information, but still just scratching the surface. So understanding properly within context what is being done is very important. The commencement of implementation of these new laws will be 1st of January 2026, so we're actually running out of time already. And the second thing is this will require a comprehensive review of organization structures, whether it's a group, whether it's an individual entity, whether it's a subsidiary, even the form of entities. For example, the rules around residency has changed. It used to be you have to be incorporated in Nigeria to be tax resident. Now we've adopted international rules, including place of effective management and control. So which means there are companies that were not previously resident in Nigeria that are going to be resident now. We also have issues to do with the entire value chain of companies, issues to do with compliance requirements, including, for example, having to report to tax strategies and also to report your benefit claims. If you enjoy tax incentives and waivers, there's an annual requirement to submit that report to the government. We have eliminated a lot of compliance requirements, but we've introduced those that will give us data, credible information, and help us to just manage the system a little bit better, making tax evasion more expensive so we can create a level playing field for taxpayers, particularly the honest one, because allowing innovation to thrive is actually just punishing honest taxpayers. So overall, I think businesses should take steps so they can optimize the benefits and manage the potential downside in terms of compliance.
Again, I just have to say this, I'm so impressed with the thoughtfulness that has gone into this, but I mean, just the way the processes work. So I have one final question for you, but I'm going to preface it with an observation, which is, it seems relatively clear to me that, absolutely justifiably, you have received a huge amount of trust and support from the president himself, and obviously that's been key. So the answer to my question is, get the president's support. But beyond that, if you had to give advice to, if somebody came to you and said, how do I do a successful tax reform? And they come from another country, what would be the single piece of advice that you gave?
Yeah, interesting. And you're spot on. The political support, political capital was essentially important for this reform, without which it would have been impossible to do it. We're lucky to have a president who understands finance and knows that these things would always be hard anywhere in the world when you do tax reforms. So beyond that, I'll say the other thing is, have a clear purpose and start with the principles. What is it that you want to do? Because sometimes we jump into trying to find solutions before we have properly defined the problem. And that means you can go round without solving the problem at all. And then using data in a form, because there was this thing I said during my policy lecture during my birthday, and I said, if you have everybody around the table without credible data, you're having a communal, you're not doing policy. So principles help in the sense that you are more likely to have consensus and buy-in from stakeholders when you start with the principles before you go into the details. For example, we said and agreed, as a matter of principle, we do not want to tax poverty, right? We do not want to tax capital. We do not want to tax investment. And so when it was time for us to translate that into legislation, we established what is the poverty line. And some of our stakeholders were not happy because they thought we were eroding their tax base for people who were paying tax. We said, well, we agree we shouldn't tax poverty, right? And then when it got to companies, we do not want to tax capital. It was easy for us to identify that minimum tax on companies is a form of taxing capital. When they have not made profits and you're asking them to pay tax, they're essentially paying out of their capital. In some cases, is withholding tax rate that are just outrageous, tying down the cash flow of businesses, and so they cannot grow. So setting the principles and then being honest to those principles in translating them to languages in the law that you can implement was the magic for us.
Brilliant. Taiwo, thank you so much for joining us. And again, congratulations and good luck with the implementation as well.
Thank you very much, Will.
That was the word. But it's been great having you with us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. And come back next time so that you stay global tax ready.